Welcome to Govardhan Eco Village. It is our true honor and blessing to have the opportunity to be with all of you. Thank you. A few minutes ago, I asked Gauravani, what would you like me to speak? I'm telling you this just to let you know I'm not prepared. For real, for real. No, what was it you said? Can we give you? This is not staged. I just forgot what he said.
I just was asking, someone may wonder, here we are in such a beautiful place that seems so far away from all the troubles of the world. And what is the purpose of so much energy to create a place like this? How is this helping all of the troubled people and places of the world?
Would you like to give an answer also? He is expertly removing me from my comfort zone. Since time immemorial, in every spiritual tradition through human history, there has been great emphasis on pilgrimage, going to a holy place. A place to remove ourselves from all of the habits that we have. Yes, the world, so much pollution, greed, selfish lust, so much envy, terrorism, anger. So the thought is, why should we leave? How are we solving the problem? But as our beloved Murari, who's a very accomplished doctor, physician, heal thyself. That's what physicians tell me to. Unless we are in a place of strength, then we really can't make a positive change. Going on a pilgrimage is not to escape from the world. It's to find a deeper place within our own hearts, to find a sangam or a support group of people who can help us become strong, to grow through the storms of life rather than just be battered down by them. Today, perhaps more than ever, people are really being beaten down by the stresses of the society around us. We need spiritual strength. We need spiritual values. Like a spiritual recharging. Because everyone has cell phones these days. And you need to recharge them, otherwise they just don't work. You can't communicate with your loved ones if your cell phone runs out. So that communication with God, with Krishna in our heart, we need to keep that connection. We need to be charged. Vrindavan is the personification of the principle of pure devotion. May I tell you one story? It's just coming to my mind because my dear friend Giridhari, seeing him, it's coming to my mind. It's a story of how someone who, in the greatest crisis of life, went on pilgrimage to the forest of Vrindavan, and the effect it had on him. Took place long ago in the Satya Yuga, where people lived very long lives. Lord Brahma, he was from long ago born of Vishnu. He had a son named Swayambhuva Manu. Swayambhuva Manu had two sons. The eldest was Priyavrat, and the youngest was Uttanapada. Of the two, Priyavrat was meant to be the next king. Uttanapada was the king of the entire world. We see in today's world, when a father has a big business empire or a person's in politics, usually the sons fight among one another who will get the best or the most or everything. Priyavrat, he decided to go into the forest on top of a mountain just to worship Vishnu or Krishna. He didn't want anything of his kingdom. He wanted the wealth of self-realization, because he could see the things of this world can never satisfy the heart. As long as we have this ahankar, this false ego, we're always going to be in competition with ourselves, what to speak of others. So although he had the most magnificent palace, the greatest wealth, power, and his father, Uttanapada, was such a king that everyone liked him. So to come into that being given to you, but he went to a mountain for the purpose of tapasya, to perform austerities for the higher purpose of self-realization. So his younger brother, Uttanapada, became king. Swayambhuva Manu was previous. Uttanapada had two sons. They were born of two different wives that he happened to have, which was a custom back then for kings. One queen was named Suruchi. She was very young, she was very beautiful, she was his dearmost. She had a son named Dhruva. Uttama. And they elder wife was named Suniti. Suniti had a son named Dhruva. One day, Uttama was sitting on the lap of his father, on the royal throne. He was patting him, speaking to him very affectionately. Uttama's mother, Suruchi, was watching, and she was so happy. Just then, little Dhruva, he was 5 years old. He wanted his father's affection too. He ran up to the throne. He crawled up to his father's lap, and just when he was about to sit, his stepmother, Suruchi, she screamed at him. It was like a thunderbolt to his heart. She said, "You have no right to sit on the lap of your father, because you are not born of my womb. If you ever hope to get the favor of your father, you must perform tapasya, worship Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if he is pleased by your lifetime of devotion, then you will die, and you will take your next birth in my womb." A little child being spoken of in this way, he was devastated. He only had one shelter, his father. He looked up at his father. His father completely ignored him, would not even look at him. Little Dhruva, his lips were trembling, he was weeping, and his father continued to ignore him. He had no shelter. Little Dhruva ran out of the palace to the place his mother was staying. When he ran to Suniti, his mother, weeping, crying, trembling, he couldn't speak. She was beside herself. "What has happened to my son?" Some of the people of the palace explained to her everything that happened. She was in more pain than Dhruva. A mother's love. It's described that her heart was like a dry leaf in a burning forest fire. Her beautiful face shriveled like a lotus flower with no water and no sun. Then she spoke. Please hear what she said. Her motherly love and her great wisdom. She said, "My darling son Dhruva, do not ever wish anything inauspicious for anyone. Because if you wish bad for anyone, whoever they may be, that will cause you the greatest pain in due course of time." She said, what your stepmother said is true. Your father just doesn't care about me. I'm an unfortunate person. But please, take the good of what she said. Because it is true that if you do worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if you worship Lord Vishnu, he will fulfill whatever desires you may have. little Dhruva, he asked, where do I find Vishnu? He's in the hearts of the great sages. Great sages, they go to the forest for so many years to find him. Although he was just 5 years old, he was so deeply hurt. He seriously contemplated his mother's words. And he made a firm decision, not whimsical at all. I will go to the forest and I will find Vishnu. I will find God. And when I do, I am going to ask him to give me a kingdom bigger and better than my father or my grandfather or my great-grandfather. And I will get my revenge. That was his mood. With those thoughts in his mind, he left. Nobody expected. When his mother found out, she was devastated. She didn't realize her motherly advice would induce him to leave home. Mothers have to be careful what they tell their children. But these days they don't listen anyway. When King Uttanapada, the father, found out, his heart broke with guilt. He loved little Dhruva. He was somehow or other under the influence of the social dynamics of pleasing somebody. What have I done to my own son? I have broken his heart so severely that he's left home at 5 years old to live in the deep, dark jungle. He will die. In the jungle, how will he find anything to eat? He's been living in royalty since his birth. There's snakes. There's tigers. Rhinoceros. Wild elephants. Leopards. Panthers. Mosquitoes. How will he survive, my tender little child? What have I done to him? Uttanapada was in so much grief of what he had done to his own son due to selfishness. He became practically incoherent. He couldn't do any of the responsibilities of a king. All he could do is just sit alone and think of Dhruva and what he had done. Meanwhile, Dhruva, Dritabrata, he was so determined. Deeper and deeper and deeper into jungles where no human beings ever went. Dark nights, blazing hot days, sometimes severely cold. Where would he find anything to eat? He didn't think about these things. He was totally focused. I am going to find God. There's a beautiful saying. By the mercy of Krishna, one gets Guru. And by the mercy of Guru, one gets Krishna. The great sage Narada, he was sent by the Lord from within his heart into that jungle. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hridesha arjuna tishtati. Bhagavad Gita tells. This is the principle of Dharma. that the supreme truth, the supreme Lord of all living beings, the Father, the Mother of everyone, Aham Bija Pratapita, is within everyone's heart. Suhrita Sarvadehinam, our ever well-wishing friend, just waiting for us to turn to him. When we find Krishna, when we find our beloved Lord within our heart, we naturally recognize the Lord within the heart of every living being. The Lord within the heart of Dhruva understood his sincerity. And even though he was in the darkest, most dangerous of all jungles, he sent Narada Muni there, who was one of the greatest sages. Narada Muni met little Dhruva. What he spoke to Dhruva, he told him the formula for happiness. Would you like to hear it? He told him a formula for happiness that works in every situation, wherever we are and whoever we're with. I'm going to get to that a little later. Because I have to prepare your hearts to receive it. Just like he prepared Dhruva's heart. First he told Dhruva, you're only 5 years old. You shouldn't take your stepmother's words so seriously. Your father's just in Maya. He's an illusion. Just forgive him and go home. 5 years old's not a time to go to the forest to do tapasya, to realize God. 5 years old is to play. You're supposed to be playing and doing nice things and fun things, and you have a whole kingdom to enjoy, and you could go to school and learn, and later on you could do all the spiritual things. Little Dhruva told him, I want a kingdom greater than my father or grandfather. His grandfather, great-grandfather, Brahma, created the universe. He wanted a kingdom greater than the whole world and the whole universe. That's a serious prayer. Narada told him, that don't you know, living in the forest and performing tapasya is very difficult. You will never survive. Please go home. Then he instructed him. He told him the formula for happiness. It's not easy, but it's simple. It's the simplest thing, but very difficult. One time somebody asked my beloved Guru Srila Prabhupada how to live a simple life. He said, simple living and high thinking is simple for the simple and very difficult for the complicated. He told Dhruva, if you want to be happy in any situation in this world, follow these principles. Whenever you meet someone who is more qualified than you, more successful than you, better recognized than you, be very happy for them. Be pleased to be with them. Be pleased with their good fortune. And honor them from your heart. Be happy with other people's good fortune. And when you meet people who are less qualified or have less good fortune than you, be compassionate. do whatever you can to lift them up, to make them better and happier. Not thinking just of you. Think of them. Paradukaduki. And when you meet someone who's your equal, become their friend. Intimate friends, where you could really share with each other and uplift each other. Because in this world, the tendency of the ahankar, the ego, is when we see somebody who is successful, especially in what we like to do, we become jealous. We become envious. We want to see them come down so that we look like we're going up. We want what they have. Envy, jealousy. Or we become depressed because I'm just not making it. This principle of envy is the basic ingredient of suffering. It's that envy we have for other people that's the greatest wall between us and God. To actually come close to God in a true sense is to truly be others' best well-wisher. The tendency of Narada Muni said that instead of being envious or jealous or depressed when you see someone succeeding, you should be happy for them. And when somebody is not as qualified, the tendency is to be condescending, arrogant. Look at me. And even if you try to help them, you want to help them, but help them only up to a certain point. We should be compassionate upon those who are less fortunate. If they're God's children, the Christian principle, the Judaic principle, is to love God with all your heart, mind, and your soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. You can't love God without loving your neighbor as yourself. Otherwise, such love of God is just an imagination. Because if you love God, you'll love who God loves. You want to be in harmony with God's will. That's the essence of Dharma. Seva. Seva is to serve God with love and serve all of nature and all living beings with that love. If we have that mood, old age, disease, death, tragedies, nuclear bombs, it can't interfere with our happiness. When we feel sad for other people out of love, because it's based in love, that's an ecstasy for the soul. Compassion, karuna. And the tendency when we meet equals is we want to talk about what we've done. We want to brag. We want to show ourselves. We want to compare ourselves. But Narada said, when you meet equals, make friends with them. Friend in need is a friend indeed. It means really, friends are selflessly there for each other. That's what friendship really means. It's not just going to movies together. It's not going to cricket games or baseball or football games together. That may be there, may not be there. But actual friendship is, I'm here for you. And I know you're here for me. We have a center. We have a higher purpose between us. And that higher purpose is we're helping each other to remain tuned in a harmonious way to our spirit, to our soul, to God. Then Narada Muni told Dhruva how you could actually live like this. Would you like to hear? He told him you should go to another forest, a forest that's in the holy place of Vrindavan. In Vrindavan there are 12 forests. There you should go to Madhuban. On the banks of the river Yamuna, you should reside. He taught him the process of Ashtanga Yoga. Asanas, pranayam, meditation. He said, you do these asanas to prepare the harmonizing of your body with your mind. And with your breath control, through your inhalation, exhalation, pranayam, you learn to control your mind. In that setting, sit on the bank of the river in that forest and meditate. And he taught him the process of meditating on the person of God within his heart. Not just an intangible conception. He explained to him the form of God that's within his heart. Beautiful Lord Vishnu with a bluish complexion. How he's dressed. His most loving, enchanting eyes. How they gaze upon his devotees with so much affection and love. Surcharging his devotee with that love through his glance. He gave him a profound, comprehensive explanation of how to meditate on the Lord. And he said, and all the while, you should chant this mantra. The mantra he gave him. Please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. But for this meditation and these yoga practices, to please the Lord, we have to be in a service attitude. Seva. He told Dhruva that from the clay of the river Yamuna, make a little form of Krishna, a deity, and put him in a little place, an altar in the forest, and serve with love. Collect fruits and flowers and offer them with love. And when it's time for you to eat, collect fruits and berries or herbs, whatever you can find, and make them an offering. And sing for the Lord. And dance for the Lord. In this way, he taught him yoga, he taught him meditation, he taught him mantra, he taught him seva. Little Dhruva left for Madhuban. Meanwhile, Narada Muni went to the palace of Uttanapada, the father, who was in so much anguish. Narada Muni asked him, "How are you?" He said, "I can't live with myself. I just can't live with myself. I'll never find a moment of peace in my life. What have I done to my son?" And Narada Muni said, "I was just with your son. He's just gone to Madhuban. He will be a self-realized Paramhamsa sage. Because he's fully taking shelter of the Lord will protect him. Do not worry. He will return." Then Narada Muni left. And Uttanapada, he got some solace from hearing Narada Muni's words. He believed the great sage. With his intellect, he believed, he knew what a great sage says is a blessing. But the heart of a father, he was still in the same amount of anxiety. Little Dhruva, he was so determined. The first month he was living in that forest, every 3 days he ate some berries and fruits from the trees. Every 6 days. On the second month, he just ate some dry grass and leaves. The third month, every 9 days, he took a little water from the river Yamuna to drink. The fourth month, every 12 days, he inhaled air. The fifth month, he was standing on one leg without breathing, not moving at all, not eating, not sleeping, just standing in complete absorption. All along for all these months, as he was doing these tapasyas, he was chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And he was meditating on the beautiful Lord within his heart. And if he wasn't physically making the offerings to his deities, he was doing it in his mind. The fifth month, he was standing like a pillar, without breathing, without the slightest movement. He did that for 1 month. Would you like to know what happened in the 6th month? The 6th month, the Devatas, Indra, Vayu, Varuna, Agni, the superintendents of the universal affairs, they couldn't breathe. They were like having asthma attacks. They couldn't breathe. So they went to Vishnu. What's happening to our universe? We can't breathe. And Vishnu said, that's because little Dhruva's not breathing. He has attained such powers that by his connection to his own soul, he's affecting the whole universe. So Vishnu descended to the Madhuban forest. And little Dhruva was on his one leg, his eyes closed. At this time he was in samadhi, totally absorbed in seeing the form of the Lord. The Lord, it wasn't just an imagination. God was fully revealing his beauty, his love, his splendor to Dhruva within his heart. Dhruva was intoxicated with ecstatic love. His heart was overflooding with affection for the Lord. Suddenly, that form disappeared. It was such a shock to Dhruva. His meditation just broke. He opened his eyes. The same form that he saw within himself was now standing personally right in front of him. 5-year-old little Dhruva, he bowed down, Dandavat. Then he stood up with folded palms. He had so much love in his heart, so much gratitude. He wanted to offer a prayer, but he never went to school. He didn't know any prayers. He was so young. Lord Vishnu understood his heart, and he was holding a conch shell. He touched the conch shell to Dhruva's forehead, and when he did so, he empowered little Dhruva with the ability to fully express the feelings of his heart through words. Dhruva offered prayers, beautiful prayers. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a whole chapter of his prayers, which even today, so long afterward, are being studied, recited, memorized, and source of great inspiration for countless people. They were prayers of gratitude. At that time, Vishnu, he offered Dhruva anything he wanted. He said, anything you desire, I will give you. Just ask. Dhruva said, I came here looking for the broken pieces of glass in the form of material acquisition. And I have received the priceless jewel of your love. There's nothing I want. I only want to be the servant of those who are your servants, to love you and to please you. Vishnu, he said, I give you this forever. In fact, in your life, you will never forget me. But I know why you came. You wanted a kingdom better than your father, your great-grandfather. You go back to your kingdom. Your father will give you the whole empire to rule over. You will rule over that empire of the world for 36,000 years, and I have prepared a special planet just for you. It will be called forever Dhruvaloka. Do you know who's going to live there forever? Vishnu said, me. It's my abode. It's the spiritual world. It's eternal. When this entire universe is destroyed, Dhruvaloka, Vaikuntha will remain. We will live together forever. It will be my abode. He gave him a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather, because even the Lord of the universe has to leave eventually. Vishnu left. Dhruva now was walking home. Now, to get those benedictions, would you be happy? What do you say? He was not happy. This story was being spoken in the Srimad Bhagavatam by Maitreya Muni to Vidura. And Vidura asked, if he got all these benedictions, he got ecstatic love, he attained the ultimate perfection of yoga, he was going to be the king of the entire world, and then he's going to go for sure back to the spiritual world, the highest perfection of liberation. Why wasn't he happy? Maitreya Rishi said, it was because he was thinking in his heart, why did I go there to meet the Lord to ask for these petty material things? It's not about me, it's about God. How is it? I went to the forest and I chanted all those mantras and I did all those meditations just about I and mine. And by the Lord's mercy, he completely cleansed me of all those dirty things and gave me a pure heart. He's so kind, so loving. But I approached him for my own selfish purposes. What kind of lover am I? The news came to the kingdom that he was on his way home. And Uttanabhata, before I explain this, Maitreya Rishi told Vidura that you can understand Dhruva's situation. Because Vidura, do you all know the story? Please raise your hands if you know the story of Vidura. It's very much like Dhruva. He was the younger brother of Dhritarashtra, who was the Kuru king. He was the uncle of Duryodhana and the Pandavas. Duryodhana, his nephew, was so envious, so spiteful. He couldn't tolerate that Bhima was more qualified than him. He couldn't qualify that Yudhisthira, his two cousins, was going to be the next king. So by deceitful and cruel, violent motives, he usurped the kingdom from them and exiled the Pandavas to the forest. Vidura was watching all this. His elder brother just didn't have the strength to go against his son. One day, Vidura, as a well-wisher, told his brother, your son is offense personified. Don't you see? His envy is like a fire that's going to burn your whole dynasty. Don't listen to him. Duryodhana heard that. Now, Vidura loved Duryodhana as much as he loved the Pandavas. He loved everybody. But he was speaking the truth. Duryodhana screamed out at his own uncle. He said, you are the son of a kept mistress. You have no standing. He insulted him with such terrible, abusive words and with so much hate. They were like arrows that were blazing fire, striking the core of his uncle's heart. Every word. It hurts so bad, Vidura, when somebody you love is betraying you in this way. And then Duryodhana said, get out from this kingdom. You no longer have a house, you no longer have anything. You leave here, and the only thing I will allow you to take with you is the breath that you breathe. Out from here! Vidura looked to Dhritarashtra, his elder brother, the the father of this boy, young man. Dhritarashtra turned his head. Vidura gave his life to serve his older brother. He was totally betraying him, totally neglecting him. Vidura left. And do you know where he went? He went to the forest on pilgrimage. He went to various holy places, and he traveled for years and years to holy places to be with enlightened yogis. Vidura was a great devotee. So Maitreya told Vidura, you could understand Dhruva's condition. And Vidura also, after the great battle of Kurukshetra and Dhritarashtra's children were defeated by the Pandavas, Vidura came back home just to help his brother who betrayed him, Dhritarashtra. And he taught him the path of liberation. He forgave him. If we're grateful to God for what God gives us, we can forgive people. Forgiveness is not just a matter of letting go. It's a matter of receiving and sharing. When Dhruva came home, there was such a celebration. And I don't have so much time, but I'm going to tell you a couple little things about this celebration. King Uttanapada decorated the entire kingdom with garlands and flowers and decorations, and everybody was dressed really nice. And Dhruva's coming home, little Dhruva's coming home. Now he was almost 6 years old. When Uttanapada had a royal palanquin that he rode on just for Dhruva. And Suniti. There was a palanquin arranged for Suniti, Dhruva's mother, to go to a little forest in the outskirts of the kingdom to greet him. Do you know what Suniti did? She brought Suruchi and Uttama. The queen who insulted Dhruva and her son, to sit on the palanquin with her. She totally forgave them. She wanted to share the joys of Dhruva's return with them. She was simply their well-wisher. What she told Dhruva, do not wish anything inauspicious for others, that's how she lived. And she was tested to the maximum. But she showed us a mother's love. Suruchi and Suniti, they became the very best of friends. When Dhruva came to the outskirts of the kingdom, Uttanapada was crying and Dhruva bowed down to him. Now he was a little Paramhamsa. He bowed down to him and his father picked him up and he embraced him. And he was crying and weeping and Dhruva was just so happy. Uttanapada, he's my same little Dhruva. But he could feel in his arms, this is a totally enlightened sage in the form of my son. Dhruva and his brother, Uttama, they embraced and they cried on each other with such happiness. And then Dhruva approached Suruchi, the queen that insulted him. From the core of his heart, Dhruva bowed to her feet, took the dust of her feet, placed in her hand, on his head, and offered his love and gratitude to her. He understood, if not for you, I would have never been what I am now. Suruchi's heart totally melted. From that moment on, she loved Dhruva as much or more than her own son, and she embraced him. And meanwhile, Suniti was just standing off to the side. And when Dhruva saw her there, he ran up and they embraced, mother and child. Dhruva ruled over the kingdom after he grew up, actually. The king Uttanapada, when he saw that Dhruva was the right age, and he was very qualified to actually take over the responsibilities of being king. Monarchy in those days was not just autocratic. It was quite democratic in spirit. Uttanapada approached all of his ministers, approached all of the great Brahmins and sages and yogis, and asked, is my son fit to serve all the citizens? Does my son really see that everything is God's property and every person in this kingdom is God's child that must be treated equally and given every facility possible? They all said yes. He's fully qualified. Then Uttanapada went to all the people of the kingdom. Not exactly a survey, but he sent messengers all over the kingdom to ask every sector of the society, would you like to be ruled over by Dhruva? And you know what everybody said? We've just been waiting for you to ask this question. Yes, we want Dhruva. When he saw unanimously, everyone felt shelter under his son. Then he gave Dhruva this throne. You know what Uttanapada did? He did what Dhruva did long before. He went into the forest. He went into the forest to worship God. No attachments. And Dhruva ruled over his people just like a father rules over children. Praja. Whether it was a tree or a bird or an insect, was every type of animal, every type of human being, he treated them as his own children. Because this is leadership according to the Vedic spirit. Sarvaloka Maheshwara. Krishna tells in Gita, everything is my property. And aham bija pratapita, everyone is my child. So a king doesn't think anything is mine. This is all God's property, God's children entrusted in my care. I must treat everyone and everything with dignity and respect. In other words, I may be taking the post of a leader, but in spirit, I'm everyone's servant. True leadership is to serve, not to control, not to possess. When my guru, Srila Prabhupada, was asked, are you the guru of the world? I was sitting in the room with him. There was just about 5 or 6 people in Vrindavan. And I was thinking that I really want to hear how he answers this question. I wasn't his disciple yet. I was just a wandering seeker going to so many people trying to find out little pieces of truth from everyone. Are you the guru of the world? He's asked. Srila Prabhupada was sitting on the floor on a little cushion. And he looked to the floor with tears in his eyes. And for about a minute didn't say a word. He was just thoughtful. He was something very deep, very spontaneous. Then he gradually looked up and he said, "No. I am the servant of everyone. That's all." And he didn't say another word after that. When I heard that, I was thinking, he is a guru for the whole world. It was so real. Guru doesn't mean being great controller. It means to be the humblest of all servants. And that's how the true gurus of the great cultures of every true spiritual tradition have lived. And that's how the great kings lived too. Even if they have to do justice to people. It's truly for the well-being of others. So little Dhruva ruled, and during this time, his brother went to the forest, Uttama, on some excursion, and a yaksha killed him. Now here Dhruva, who's humbler than a blade of grass, he had to take action. Because if you're in the role of a government leader, you have to serve justice to those who are wicked, to protect the innocent. So he went and attacked, I think it's Alakpuri, the kingdom of the Yakshas. They were great warriors. Dhruva blew a conch shell. He was so powerful. When he blew the conch shell, the whole army of the Yakshas, they were terrified. They got all their battle paraphernalia, they got on chariots and attacked. And at one time, thousands and thousands and thousands of arrows at one time were covering Dhruva. You couldn't even see him. And Dhruva remembered the Supreme Lord, and they all, like the sun, came out of this fog. And he started fighting. There's great descriptions, but we should go to Yamuna Arti, so I don't want to go through all these descriptions. But it was an incredible battle. They were mystic yogis. You see, yogis could misuse their powers too. They were such yogis that at one time, because Dhruva was defeating all of them, they created this illusion where everything became dark, and then clouds like mountains formed in the sky, and lions and tigers roaring were falling like rain by the millions. And venomous serpents with fire flying out of their mouths were coming down from the sky toward Dhruva. Then Dhruva heard the ocean, and he saw a tsunami, a tidal wave coming at one side, about to completely destroy everything. Little Dhruva got bewildered. He wasn't little anymore, now he was king. At that time, great yogis and sages and rishis, great devotees, they all approached Dhruva and said, Dhruva, you're being overcome by this mystical illusion. Remember the Lord in your heart. Chant his names. And Dhruva did that, and suddenly everything disappeared. Now Dhruva was very angry, for good reasons. He was shooting arrows so fast, with such precision, that he was annihilating the whole Yaksha race. Brahma came down and said, Dhruva, it's only one Yaksha that killed your brother. Why are you getting so carried away? It's time for arti. Sorry, I want you to go to the arti. Could they wait the arti a few minutes? Ask if they can. If they can't, tell them we will be very unhappy. Should I continue? You see, even great personalities like Dhruva, he was a self-realized soul, but in his service, he got carried away. For a good cause, but still he got carried away. So we all need, even the greatest sages, even the most enlightened beings, love to be with other yogis, with other devotees. So Brahma told Dhruva that the yakshas are very dear to Kuvera. Kuvera is the lord of the treasurer of the demigods. He's very powerful. Out of compassion for the yakshas and out of respect for Kuvera, please stop fighting them. You've already done everything justice was required to protect the innocent. Dhruva respectfully stopped. At that time, Kuvera came down. Now, Kuvera has such wealth, far beyond any kingdom. And he told Dhruva, because you have offered respect to my community, even though they killed your brother, I'll give you anything you want. Just ask. Dhruva said, please give me only one benediction, that in my heart of hearts I will always remember my beloved Lord with love. And my great and only aspiration will be to be the servant of the servant of the servant of my beloved Lord, to serve all beings. Kuvera gave him that benediction. At the prescribed time, Dhruva turned over the kingdom to others, and he went back to the forest. In fact, he went to Badrinath, one of the 4 dhams, a holy place high in the Himalayas. In Badrinath, he performed his puja, he performed his meditation, he performed his chanting, living among great sadhus. When his prescribed time to leave this world was, Lord Vishnu personally sent from the spiritual world his 2 most confidential associates, Nanda and Sunanda, on a beautiful celestial airplane. They descended. They told little Dhruva, Dhruva, Vishnu has come through us to bring you back to his home. He wants you to come now. Eternal life, full of knowledge and bliss in the supreme abode. Dhruva, he took his bath to prepare for his departure. Have any of you ever bathed in the Alaknanda River? Very cold. It's liquid ice. It's just coming out of a glacier in the peaks of the Himalayas. He took his bath. Then he put on nice little clothes. Then he did his home morning puja and sadhana. He did his meditation, he did his chanting. If you're perfect, why do you do that? Because he was doing his sadhana, he was doing his spiritual practice for the pleasure of the Lord. Whether you're doing your spiritual practice or your seva in this world or the spiritual world, there's really no difference. He was so humble. After finishing all of his spiritual practices, sometimes we think when I become advanced, I won't have to do this. But the reality is, when you become advanced, you'll love to do this. Now you kind of do it. But when you become advanced, it's not that now I'll give this up. You'll love to do it because it's seva. Sadhana is seva. He went to each and every one of these yogis. He bowed to them and begged for their blessings to go with such respect. That airship to the spiritual world was for him, wasn't for them. They had not attained the perfection he did. Now you may think, if you're getting this liberation, you look at these other yogis and you think, well, maybe next time for you, but I'm going. But if you have that consciousness, you can't go. The consciousness that really qualifies you to go is Dhruva's. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this simple lesson. Trinadapi sunichena toror ibasi hishnuna amani namana dena kirtaniya sadahari. If you want to truly love God and taste the sweetness of Krishna's names, one must be more humble than a blade of grass, more forgiving and tolerant than a tree. One must be eager to offer all respects to others and not expect or demand respect for oneself. In that spirit, Krishna is so pleased. We can taste the infinite sweetness of his beauty, his love, his mercy when we chant his names. So little Dhruva humbled himself before all of them. And they were overwhelmed. They gave their full blessings. And when he was about to board the chariot, death personified came before Dhruva. Usually people are afraid of death. But Srila Prabhupada explains in this relation that when a cat holds a rat in his mouth, the rat is very much afraid. Because for the rat, the cat is death personified. But when the cat holds in her mouth a kitten, it's the same mouth, it's the same teeth. But the kitten feels so protected. Yeyatam mam prapadyante tam stadaiva bhajamyam. See, like that? She's like mother cat and your little kittens are coming. So if we approach the Lord with love, then even when death comes, we feel the Lord's love. Otherwise, if we act averse to the Lord's will, then when death comes, death is fearful. Dhruva used Death Personified's head as the step to board the airship. Now he's on the airship. I'm going to end real soon. I'm sorry I'm taking so long. He's about to go back to the spiritual world, the ultimate liberation, what everybody's longing for and yearning for, what everybody wants in this world but can never get, eternal life full of bliss and knowledge and loving, ecstatic relationship with the Supreme Being. He's about to go there in his same body. He doesn't even have to die. But he was thinking in his heart, how could I go without my mother? It's only because of her that I'm anything. It was my mother, Suniti, who told me 36,000 years before that you should go to the jungle and worship Vishnu. She didn't even mean that I should go. She was just telling me that's what sages do. But it was because of her wisdom, her motherly love, her example, that I am who I am. I can't leave her. This is a saint. Detachment doesn't mean no feeling. Detachment means feeling profound, deep, limitless gratitude, love, and compassion. He was such a grateful person. He remembered his mother from one thing she did so long ago. He said, I can't go without her. And he didn't say anything. He was just thinking that. And Nanda and Sunanda, the drivers of that airship, they said, Dhruva, please look up in the sky. When he looked up, he saw there was another airship with his mother on it. In this regard, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when he saw the condition of the world, he prayed, Dear Lord Krishna, please send one of your people from the spiritual world to help me to spread love of God and God's name in this world. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur became his son and his disciple. He was the guru of my guru. When Srila Prabhupada was in his commentary of this particular verse where Suniti got to go back to Vaikuntha because Dhruva was feeling such gratitude and affection for her. Srila Prabhupada quoted his guru, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, if I have one of all my efforts in this world, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had thousands and thousands of followers, he said, if one of them becomes a pure lover of Krishna, then my whole mission is successful. And then Srila Prabhupada revealed his heart. So humble. If even one of my disciples becomes a pure lover of Krishna, then on the strength of his or her love, Krishna will take me back to Vaikuntha also, the spiritual world. In Gauravani, doing a beautiful festival we had in Pune some years ago. There was about 3,000 people there, 4-day festival. Just the whole festival is just hearing and different lectures and talks and chanting and dramas and feasting. It's a bhakti festival we have Sridarji here, who is the founder of Bhakti Fest. So we had our Bhakti Fest in Pune, and Gauravani was leading kirtans. He charmed everyone's heart so much. And at the closing session, the presenters spoke little messages to all the devotees. And Gauravani was asked to come up. And he said, I became very restless, and I went astray. But the prayers of my mother brought me back. The prayers of my mother have made me everything I am. And then he started to cry. And everyone in the audience was crying. It was like 6,000 eyes crying. Gauravani concluded with a choked voice, never underestimate the prayers of a loving mother. And we have Rukmini Devi, that loving mother, among us today. And we have another mother, Yamuna. And let us all rush to the arti. It's really nice. It might be the only opportunity for many of you for this Yamuna arti. So I really appreciate if we all go there. Thank you very much.